Welcome to Be Squared, a show about creating impact. Our use of the squared symbol is a metaphor for being more than an addition to someone's life, but being exponential in it. We, along with our guests, create a discussion around quotes, statements, and ideas to empower, educate, and inspire others. Pete Ferguson is CBO of BHS Productions, an adult and youth development specialist, entrepreneur, and empowerment speaker. I'm Adam Bratten, a professional trainer, entrepreneur, professional photographer, speaker, and a local actor and model here in Denver, Colorado.
Adam and I are truly excited to have you here today. So just to kind of jump right into things, can you tell us a little bit, we don't ask what to introduce you to, but tell us a little bit about your purpose, who you are, what you're involved in, but what's your purpose with those things?
Well, and thank you. Thank you so much for having me first and foremost. And Adam, thank you for having me. Pete and I, as you said, Pete, we've been friends for a very long time. And so given that we have been friends for such a long time, I'm a little shocked that I have to follow Shauna, who is gorgeous, charismatic, and intelligent and entertaining. So sorry, everyone listening. But yeah, so Pete and I have known each other for a long time, way back in the 90s we met. And so when I think about my purpose and who I was then and who I am now, as you said, obviously I'm the president and publisher of the Journal Star, but bigger than that, and I think the thing I'm most proud of is I'm the mom of two kids who are now grown. So I have a son, Malcolm, who's 25, and my daughter, Sierra, who's going to be 30 in July. So definitely my proudest accomplishments. And last year, my life changed dramatically in that my daughter and her husband had a daughter. And so now I'm the proud grandma. Mimi of Caitlin Marie. We call her Lil Miss KK. She's not spoiled at all, but the most adorable granddaughter in the entire world. So I am, it's been life-changing. I am so looking forward to being part of her life growing up. So yeah, that's Ava in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, Ava, you told us a little bit about your personal, but can you tell us a little bit about your role with,
Sure.
Media, and obviously we're in some different times, like how, that's, how that's impacted you and how that's impacted just the industry a little bit.
Sure. So I started, this is crazy to think about, but I just celebrated 25 years with the company. And so I was going to UNK when you were at Hastings College, University of Nebraska-Kearney, and transferred to Lincoln as a young single mom and started working in the newspaper. At that time, we were two newspapers, and we've since joined to one. We were morning and afternoon, and now we're a morning paper with a site. But so I was taking ads in the classified ad department, and we were as busy as you can imagine, lots and lots of calls on hold. And how things have changed from 25 years ago, back in 1995 to 2020 are light years apart. One thing that's never changed is our mission, which is to inform readers. And so, when you think of the COVID-19 crisis, the virus, which is definitely the biggest story of our lives, of my life and professional career. I'm looking out, I'm at my office today and looking out at the newsroom. These folks are working around the clock, 24/7 to provide accurate and updated information to our consumers, our readers, our users. Which is hard because this is changing by the minute. So when you think of the news cycle that used to be, we put together a paper and it would land on your doorstep in the morning. The news would be a little old, but we'd put to bed at night and be there in the morning. Right now it's changing by the minute. So we post a story and 7 minutes later it's a new total and it's a new tally and it's a different and changing world. And while that is sort of where the newsroom thrives, financially, this has had a significant impact on us because you think about advertisers, clients, customers, every business in every sector is being impacted. And so they're holding on to their funds. So the revenue engine that drives the operation, which is what I'm responsible for, has somewhat dried up, but yet you're needed now more than ever. The community is relying on you to provide that accurate, factual information. And then we have, folks that think that this is media is hyping it. I saw a comment, media is hyping this for profit. There's no profit in this. The coronavirus is the lead story on every day now. And that's what people come to our site for, and that's what people come and read our paper for. But we've provided that content for free. So the one thing that could really actually generate revenue for us, people would pay to get it. We're giving it away right now. So it's an interesting time to be in the business. And just beyond that, I would just note that the week that things sort of blew up in our state, in Nebraska, my parent company, Lee Enterprises, purchased BH Media, which is Warren Buffett's media company, and all of his newspapers in the country. So it doubled the size of our operation nationally. I doubled the size of my oversight regionally. So you're trying to integrate an entire, doubling the size of your business without being able to go to the market, to meet the folks, to see the finance, So it's been a crazy 6 weeks.
Wow.
Really crazy. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, I think, in hearing all of that and just how long that you've been involved in the media, I think our statement today, there's a lot of ways to go with it. And when I give it to you, I want to have you just, whatever direction you want to take it, feel free. But the thought for today is anyone can do what you do, but no one can replace you. So what comes to mind when you hear that statement?
It's really sort of coincidental. And I feel like over the course of the last few years, things have just been sort of lining up in a way that everything sort of makes sense in my world. But so when Pete originally asked me to be on the podcast, we were talking about the statement. The next day, I started a social change leadership course through Stagen Institute, which is a world-renowned leadership institute. And I am part of the inaugural first cohort that is only women. So it's been a co-ed leadership program for years. And our cohort is named after Audre Lorde. So if you know Audre Lorde, she is an amazing individual. She was an activist. Feminism was sort of her overarching theme. She was a writer. I want to make sure I get a few things right about her. So one of the statements and sentences that we read about that made us choose her was her activism was deeply intersectional, her writing multi-genre, and she embraced differences with individuals and communities, believing that even though we're interdependent, we're better for those complexities, right? So the very first class was a day after I talked to Pete, and we had to pick our favorite Audre Lorde leadership or quote as part of the leadership orientation. And so I picked a quote that said, certainly this is hers, so I'm going to quote it verbatim, but certainly there are very real differences between us, but it is not those differences between us that are separating us. It is rather our refusal to recognize those differences. And she says, you do not have to be me in order for us to fight alongside each other. And I picked those because, and the statement sort of is exactly that, right? It's, you're not me, but we are better together, right? So we're separate, we're interdependent, but we are one. And as I was going through the class last week, I was thinking about your quote, anyone can do what you do, but no one can replace you, is very similar to that. You don't have to be me in order for us to fight alongside each other, which is, I think, the piece that I need most in my leadership moving forward, is embracing others, empowering others, and inspiring others, whether that be in my organization, in my community, in my personal life. That's what I'll be striving for.
I kind of hear you say, I think if you look at this kind of quote in the context of, a task-oriented component of an individual's life, right? Maybe hidden within that quote is the fact that there's all these intangibles that are irreplaceable, right? Anybody can, if it's a job, yeah, that's replaceable, right? If it's just a task that you're doing, that's anybody can do that, right? But there's certain things that you bring to the table, that Pete brings to the table, that I would bring to the table. What would be some of the things that you think that would make you almost irreplaceable from those other components of who you are?
Yeah, so I think when you're in a role like mine and you're part of a sort of a major corporation that is beholden to shareholders, right? So profit is your scorecard is everything, right? So you look at Ava Thomas in Lincoln, Nebraska, and the 12 markets she oversees, and you look at her profitability, and that's who you are. You're a number. So if you get caught up in I am, what have you done for me lately in terms of that number, anybody can be plucked out of that situation and deliver a number that's a percentage or 2 points better by doing some really tactical and maybe even some strategic things. But I think, what's bigger than that, and you can say people over profits, is what you do within your organization and how you grow your organization. So, I recognize that one of the challenges that I have is I'm a doer and I'm in the work and I'm, very hands-on and touching it. And that tends to remove authority and accountability from the folks that report to me. So what I've really been working on is empowering them to have the accountability and the authority and then the resources to produce. And so can everybody do that? Not everybody can't do that. That's a leadership quality that's irreplaceable or intangible.
Well, you talked about a couple things, and you said that not replaceable, that intangible, and we focus a lot on relationships. And so with that, how do you hear that term essential workers? People that are essential, and I like to look at it kind of a couple of different ways. Like there's, what makes you expendable, and then what makes you essential. And it seems, especially during these times, there's been kind of an ebb and flow with that. And with what you do, obviously getting that news out, being timely is essential, but that doesn't necessarily, how do you define yourself as being somebody, as a person that's essential, regardless if you have been supposedly expended?
Right. Well, I think we all have a certain amount of esteem, and who we are is tied up in what we do. Right. So, Ava is a president of a company, and Chris is a reporter, and Natalia is a VP, and we become whatever it is that our job is. And so a gal that I know very, very well said, I hate when people say, oh, hi, Pete, and nice to meet you, and what do you do? It's like, What does it matter what I do? What's it matter what my job is? And her question is always, and what do you like to do for fun? And tell me a little bit about yourself without telling me what it is that your job is, because you're not your job, right? So knowing that interpersonal dynamic of what makes Pete tick. You can pluck Pete out of LPS or Leadership Lincoln or whatever your involvement is, and at the core of who you are is you're a community convener. You are an empowerer. You are focused on youth. And those are the things that I know about Pete. I don't think of what is Pete's job title, right? So I think we all have to get more focused on stop attaching professional titles to define who people are. Because in this new world, in this new normal, in this alternate universe that we're living in right now, it doesn't matter so much anymore.
Well, and I think that's kind of one of those things that, you challenge with, because, I always talk about, you will get a label in life. you will get labels. You will get multiple labels, whether you ask for them or you don't. And it could be a title of a job. It could be about your personality, this, that, and the other. But I always tell individuals, when you talk about leadership, it's not about the label that you have. It's about the ones that you allow to stick.
Right.
And so as I see this talk about, okay, this is an essential, offering. And again, kudos and just well wishes to like our educators and to our healthcare workers and our law enforcement and media. But I also see other individuals who feel like they're devalued because they weren't in that list. And it's not about, like you said, it's not about making the list that makes your value. And so I've struggled with that. And you said it so eloquently about, digging down to the relationship, digging down to that other 90% of who that person or who you actually are. Your job title or your role did not necessarily define you. You still are an essential individual and should be on that list that a governor or mayor dictates. It's just right now the defined role that you may have been put into in your lot in life right now has to go to the wayside for other things, but you don't go to the wayside.
And what's really interesting is essential. If you read orders, we didn't enter shelter in place or stay at home orders. So, but I've got other markets that do have a shelter in place order or a stay at home order. And if you read through those orders, there's a wide variety, and majority of businesses can be deemed essential in one way or the other. So there's very few that are, a fabric store, that have to close. They're like, okay, we live with a fabric store opening. But you can almost look at that like you can't think you're an elite group because you're doing essential, because just about everything is essential when you look at it when you on those technical orders in the middle of a pandemic, right?
Thanks.
So as somebody who oversees a lot of people and varying roles within your organization and in the newspaper and the media portion of that, even on online presence and stuff, when you're hiring or dealing with individuals on a daily basis, what are some of the most important things that you look for in them? If we're not looking at them as taskmasters, right? Even if they are a taskmaster, what are some of those things that you find most important when you're dealing with those people, talking to them?
So and we've sort of gone back and forth on testing and evaluation of employees, and certainly, if you're looking at an entry-level position versus a high-level executive, leader of an organization in a market, there are a variety of different things you're looking for. But Malcolm Gladwell is somebody that I can listen to, read the phone book and love the guy. But I was listening to him being interviewed by another economist. So now that revisionist history is kind of in stall mode, there's between seasons, and I've listened to them all. I just listened to him being interviewed by other people. Yeah. So he was being interviewed by this economist, and he said, throw out the education piece, right? Like, I don't want to know where you went to school. In fact, I won't even look at it anymore as I'm interviewing people, because it doesn't matter what prestigious institution you went to. I don't care. I want to evaluate people without looking at that. And so I was thinking, I actually already do that. We have a gentleman that we hired, and he's in the sales division, and my VP of sales was out when he was being interviewed. And so we had an interim that was making the decision, and she said, on paper, this guy, no, but I just kind of have a feeling, will you talk to him? Sure. So they sent him up to me, and I interviewed him, and he said something in that interview that I probably said 25 years ago, applying for this job in classified ads as part-time worker, walking back and forth to class between my hours here. He said, I get up every day and I go to my server job, and I don't want to just be a server anymore. I want to be a professional. I want to dress up and come to work at an 8 to 5 job and take home a decent pay instead of this paycheck with tips. And that's what I want to do. And even though I don't have any experience, I'm going to ask you to gamble on me. And that's all I needed to hear. I'm like, let's go, let's do it. And he has been extremely successful here. He's a hard worker. But the thing I said when he left my office was, do not, whether you get this job or don't get this job, do not ever say in an interview, I'm just a server.
Yeah.
You're not just anything. Do not diminish the job that you do, whether it's the job you want or the job that you don't, by saying you're just a server, or you're just a cashier, or you're just a night stock person. And I think that really resonated with him. And of course, then he got the job, and he's been doing really, really well at it. So I think we just have to stop with the preconceived notions. And the other thing that I think people don't realize, and this happened to me yesterday. So I got a call to join a leadership group, a leadership panel here in Lincoln. And as happens often, they read me the roster of who's on the panel. And it's the who's who. I mean, it's the Pete, you know the names, there's 19 of them on, and there's 2 more spots, and they want me and this other person. And so, and it's a couple of high-powered folks asking me. And so they went through and what we'll do, and then, address the challenges in Lincoln and opportunities to come and whatever. And I said no. And a couple of weeks ago, before I started this social change leadership course, which I am one of 3 non-African Americans in this group. But we've talked a lot about social identity and personal identity, and they've talked about their challenges and the responsibility that we have in our communities and beyond. And I just simply said, you've assembled an amazing roster of leaders in Lincoln, and it sounds fascinating, and I would love to be part of it, but I have to decline because you don't have a single non-white person on your panel. And that is not reflective of our community. And so what I'm looking for is to be part of groups and organizations that are more reflective of our community, both in terms of diversity, which isn't just ethnicity, but it's sexual orientation and even ability. I want to be part of something like that. So if you're not insistent that we move forward with that, I wouldn't be able to participate in the panel. So, and when I hung up, I just thought, and that's what we all need to do in our organizations, from leadership perspectives, in the circles that we have. They're just your social circles that you look around and you go, wait a minute. They all look like me. They all talk like me. They all walk like me. They're all in my kind of income demographic. Something's wrong there. To just challenge ourselves to push a little beyond that comfort zone, or a lot beyond that comfort zone, but to take that first step to say, yeah, this isn't a group that I would want to be part of unless we have more perspective offered. So.
Well, and I think one of the things that you've done when you talked about that, sometimes it's not always easy saying no. and one of the things that we've had some heart-to-heart conversations, but one of the things that I've really admired and I've kind of watched grow is your ability and your consistency and your commitment to showcasing excellence in females. And with the Inspire, I don't even say event. I don't like events. Anybody can do an event.
Yeah.
Very few people can do an experience. And what that is that Inspire is truly an experience. And can you talk a little bit about what that is, and then how you have invested in excellence, especially in females, from young people to adults, to excellence in nonprofit. I mean, the word excellence is in front of every, award that's given. And then the nominations that you receive, it exudes excellence. Whether you get it or not, you've assembled rosters of people that traditionally may not get invited to these panels. And I've seen that grow, and you're committed to that. And so can you speak a little bit about that? And then how do you instill excellence in individuals that are oftentimes marginalized or not disproportionately represented?
Yeah. So I love that you said it's not just an event, because anybody can put on an event. So I never call it an event either, even though we do have a big event where we bring everybody together. But the Inspire Women's Leadership women's achievement and leadership is really sort of a movement. And it started 5 years ago, and I was sitting in a meeting, and I was sitting in a board meeting, and I was looking around, and it was me, and it was the chief executive officer of the hospital that's a female, and our executive director of our Chamber of Commerce who's female, at the biggest bank in town led by a female. I mean, you know who these people and players are in our community, Pete. But to be in Lincoln, Nebraska, and have that sort of progressive mentality of having so many executives leading companies, our largest insurance company, led by a female, the foundation, community foundation, is really pretty extraordinary. And I thought, how do we celebrate this more? How do we toot our horn a little bit more? There's a lot of ways that people are recognized, but not really in a gender specific way, which is sort of almost taboo these days, gender specific roles. But I wanted a way to just recognize female leaders. And it started off, yes, as you said, Pete, more business, nonprofit, philanthropy, government, sort of across the sectors of adults. And we have those two categories of, future business leader award, which is, high school students. And I think what happened that sort of made me realize there's female leadership, right, that we want to, an achievement that we want to highlight, but there's also getting to them sooner, which is, well, when I was in that room of female leaders, that it was intimidating. Add to it all the male leaders, and I'm like, I don't belong. Which one does not belong? Ava Thomas. If someone would have helped to lift me up a little sooner and mentor me more, and have them being in a female in a leadership role, it would have been a game changer. So your work with mentors, for example, if we could get that, more in the female space, that'd be great. So when we started Inspire Girls, it was after a nominee, a finalist for the Future Business Leader Scholarship came to the event, wide-eyed. I'm sure you probably know who I'm talking about, Pete, and said, I think I'm supposed to be here. I don't know where to sit. And we showed her seat, and she was shaking, and I said, what's wrong? And she goes, I don't belong here. Like, the mayor's here, the governor's here, all these powerful people are here. I don't feel like I belong. And I just said, you do belong here. You do belong here. You belong here more than any of us belong here. And it's up to you to make sure that whoever's sitting in your seat in 10 years feels like they belong here. And so I came back that day and said, we have to start the Inspire Girls movement, because we've got to get to them sooner. Bullying is such a huge issue. And so embracing and empowering and inspiring others to be their best selves, specifically in those gender roles at this age, is just critically important. So, with that, we've spun it off into an Inspire Girls program. We still have the Inspire Women's Leadership program. We still have a big event that will likely be virtual this year, but we've done smaller little events, micro events, and learning opportunities. And man, I just can't believe what these girls know at their age, and how wise they are and smart they are, and how challenging they are. We had a high school student tell us that when she was in 8th grade, she went and protested to her principal, wrote an entire paper on how it was discriminatory towards females, that they could not show a bra strap on a shirt because the males wouldn't be able to learn with that type of environment. So I just thought, these women, they're just going to conquer the world. So we had to do it. Someone had to do it.
Well, it's been absolutely awesome. And just watching that transformation. And I think not only do you do that for the young people that come into the room, but there's also adults who come into the room and it's like, do I really belong here? And to relay to people, and you've been so instrumental, and others have, of just saying, you belong here. You are here. Not only do you belong here, but you are here. And I love that piece that it says excellence in front of everything, because you exude that when, before you even got in the room. You didn't need the recognition to be excellent, but you provide a vehicle for that. And so I hope that spins off, not just for Lincoln, but, I know there's opportunities in like Denver and across the country, because it truly is a model for those who may be listening and aren't aware. Definitely connect with Ava about that, because it's something truly, truly special.
We're getting ready to launch in a lot of the major markets within my parent organization, but it's just a no-brainer. And it's easy to do, and I'll be happy to connect with folks about that.
Awesome.
Obviously something near and dear to my heart. And I think the other really cool piece is you get nominated by someone that you have inspired. And so when you think about somebody taking the time to say, you've inspired me, Pete, you've said this to me often, like take the time to tell somebody what they've meant to you, whether that's a mentor, a teacher, just an individual, how they made you feel, like your Maya quote. So when people find out somebody nominated me, well, I'm just such and such. It's like, no, you inspired somebody so much so that they took the time to write a nomination about all of the glorious things that you've done that made them inspired, right? That have inspired them. It's incredible. There's no better feeling.
Awesome.
Really.
I think that really resonates with me. Just what you said about kind of inspiring, and being a personal trainer and strength coach, and that's trained primarily female athletes. I think I've trained probably close to 3,500 volleyball girls, and one of the things that you said that I feel like I try to do is elevate people past what maybe their own expectation of themselves is, because they might see it in themselves, and I might put a label on somebody, or I could potentially put a label on somebody, but I don't know what their work ethic is, and then next thing you know, 4 years later, they're going to Notre Dame, or they're, I didn't even know they had like a 5.0 GPA, right? So I think that, just you speaking to elevating people, you use the word inspire, right? But I think it's kind of elevating them to another level. And us being the first ones, like, we don't know how that word of encouragement or whatever could.
That is such a good point. The number one thing your point is, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the number one thing when I'm reading those nominations is exactly what you just said, is this person saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So, I was limiting myself, and she inspired me by showing me the way, or lifting this, or holding the door open for me to go through it, or told me I had it, or promoted me when I never thought I could do the job. So they saw in me something I couldn't see in myself. It's the number one thing I read on nominations. Yeah, that's really good. Elevating. Yeah.
So as we kind of close, I just we always spend the last little bit of time. We gave you a quote to start off the show with, and we always like to give our guests an opportunity to share with our audience and with other people something that maybe is going on right now that's inspiring you, or something that you live by. So what would that be if you wanted to share that with our audience?
Okay. Wow. So I didn't say this at the beginning, but I was raised for a good chunk of my childhood by my grandma, and my grandma had a saying, and so I'm going to kind of do two, if you don't mind. So my whole life growing up, my grandma had a saying that was, there but for the grace of God go I. And she would say that all the time, there but for the grace of God go I. If you ever saw somebody down on their luck, or begging on the corner, or when the ambulance would drive by, she would say, to us, my brother and I, there but for the grace of God go I. Say, there but for the grace of God go I. And what it really meant is, when you think that you have it rough, or you're in tough times, or facing adversity or challenges in your life, just always know that there is somebody else that has it worse. And that is, without doubt, every time true. And so I've always tried to think about that. And so growing up with that was sort of my phrase. And then just in the last 2-3 years, I've been sort of going through my own personal transition and transformation in my life. And I have a little sign on my bathroom mirror, and it says, the best is yet to come. And so I think of those two quotes. This is my Graham bracelet. This is her signature. She's with me all the time. So her quote resonates with me every single day, there but for the grace of God go I. And secondly, belief that the best is yet to come. And I think if you believe, then you can visualize that you can make that happen. So those are my two.
Awesome. Well, Ava, I think the way you ended that, the best is yet to come. I think, especially in these times, we couldn't have ended on any better words, because I think we all truly, truly believe that. And so with that, I definitely want to thank you. And Adam and I definitely appreciate you just being on today. But with that being said, if people want to know more about Ava Thomas or the Lincoln Journal-Star, like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, how can they connect or learn more about the Inspire experience?
Yeah.
How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so if anyone's interested in Inspire, and I can talk for hours and days probably about Inspire, journalstar.com/Inspire is our page, and it hosts all things Inspire related, including Inspire Girls. We also have an Inspire Facebook page, so Inspire Women's Leadership is on Facebook. If you're just looking to contact me, easy to find me. If you go to the journalstar.com website and you click on Contact Us, President and Publisher is there, my mugshot, if you will. Pete, no comments on the mugshot. My photo and contact information is there as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ava, and thanks for being exponential to our audience. Appreciate it.